again!
It's over!
He's done it again! Unbelievable!
Oh, straight into the roof of the net.
Nice one.
Straight down the middle. So a good performance from both teams.
Hi, you're watching Firstpost here with me, Rupha Ramani. Let's get started. On the show today, Pakistan chess players seem to have learned from the mistakes their hockey counterparts made, supporting China against India in the final. They cheered India on at the Olympiad, waving the Indian flag, but what reactions did they get? And was this all staged? Over in football, North Korea's under-20 team wins World Cup despite hibernating for 5 years. Is this strict North Korean system affecting their culture and stature in the sporting world? And over in cricket, Bangladeshi superfan is allegedly attacked at Kanpur's Green Park Stadium. What does he say afterwards? And how hostile is the India-Bangladesh tie really? Will it also affect Shakib Al Hasan, who sent out a plea to play his last game in front of his home crowd in Bangladesh? But can he? Stay on for more on all of these stories, but first, let's take a look at the headlines. Starting with tennis, men's world number one Yannick Sinner began his title defense at the China Open. The Italian faced a tough battle from Nicholas Harry. However, Sinner fought back from a set down to secure a 4-6, 6-3, 6-1 win. Over in Formula One, 8-time race winner Daniel Ricciardo will leave Red Bull-owned RB. RB announced he will be replaced by New Zealand's Liam Lawson for the rest of the season. Lawson has been on Red Bull's standby list since 2022. He even filled in for Ricciardo last year when he got injured. Toyota will end its sponsorship of the Olympics and the Paralympic Games. The Japanese giant feels the games are increasingly getting more political. Toyota, the top sponsor of both these events, had signed a 10-year contract. The world's largest automaker says it will not renew it as the athletes are put on the back burner. However, the company said it will still support athletes financially. Over in baseball, a fan has filed a lawsuit to oppose the sale of baseball star Shohei Ohtani's 50th home run ball. Ohtani made history last week to touch 50 home runs and 50 bases in a single season. The fan claims he's the rightful owner. The person said he grabbed the ball first after it flew out, but another fan snatched it. That same ball will be auctioned with a starting bid of $500,000. Cricket news. West Indies all-rounder Dwayne Bravo has announced retirement from all forms of cricket just hours after he announced that he will quit playing the sport. Bravo joined IPL outfit Kolkata Knight Riders as their mentor. They, in fact, will be trying to defend their IPL win, which they achieved under current India coach Gautam Gambhir. A fan who directed racist chants towards Real Madrid forward Vinicius Jr. was given a prison sentence. However, the punishment has been suspended after the unnamed person apologized to the footballer. Vinicius' racial abuse occurred during a match in Spain's Mallorca last year. India's historic chess Olympiad campaign success is the talk of the town. A win so emphatic that the reverberations are continuing to be felt all over the world even now. The double gold impressed some of the prominent names in chess. All the big guns took a note of India's big win. And after making the roar offline and wooing the top brasses, the buzz on the internet took over. The latest being a cross-border unity of sorts that has taken social media by storm. After the conclusion of the tournament, India was celebrating their massive victory in Budapest, but they weren't alone in the celebrations. Pakistan chess team joined them too. Pakistan in that Olympiad managed to score only 11 points and finished 95th in the chess Olympiad, but they won hearts all over with an unexpected gesture. The Indian and Pakistan contingents were in fact even pictured together holding the Indian flag. Although the two nations are neighbors, separated by just a border, the political differences are so massive that such sights are indeed very, very rare. In the sporting world, however, this has reignited into an intense rivalry. The recently concluded Hockey Asian Champions Trophy is the biggest example of this. A tournament where Pakistan finished third. But it was the act that followed their elimination that really disappointed everyone. Pakistan's hockey team was seen supporting China by waving the Chinese flag during the final against India. Pakistan's hockey team was ridiculed everywhere for this gesture, especially after India won that final. So clearly, when the Pakistani chess team posed for a picture with the Indian team and showed their respect towards the Indian flag, they were hailed on the internet. The love came not just from Indian fans, but also from many Pakistani supporters. The gesture is uplifting for many reasons. The biggest being Pakistan has been nowhere close to a top 3 finish. Yet they acknowledged a rival as champions. It showed the kind of respect they have for their biggest competitors. A gesture that goes a long way in this sporting world. And it's not like the tournament was a total failure for Pakistan. During the Olympiad, Pakistan's 20-year-old Momin Faizan and 11-year-old player Ayat Asmi earned the titles of Candidate Master, a stepping stone for Pakistan in the world of chess. Because Pakistan's only Grandmaster is Mia Sultan Khan, who was given the honorary title earlier this year. So for a country whose sporting culture is going through a very rough phase, finding hope in two youngsters is a huge thing. And their salute towards the Indian team will establish a long-standing relationship in chess at least. Maybe if these two Pakistani players go on to becoming grandmasters, they will have plenty of things to learn from star grandmasters like India's D. Kukesh, Arjun Erigesi, R. Pragyananda, Vantika Agarwal, Divya Deshmukh and Vaishali. Indian players who have been dazzling the chess world from a very young age now could become role models for the young Pakistani chess players. And chess is not the only sport that has seen such heartwarming scenes, especially from Pakistani athletes. Earlier this year, India's Rana Singh and Pakistan's Shahzeb Rind came up against each other in a karate combat. Eventually, the Pakistani athlete emerged triumphant. 2-1 was the scoreline, but it was Shahzeb's signal that became a big talking point in that battle. Shahzeb held both India's and Pakistan's flags together after the fight. He called it the fight for peace.
This fight was for peace. We are not enemies. We are together. Together we can do anything. This fight is for Pakistan and India's friendship and being closer.
In 2023 too, Indian javelin thrower Neeraj Chopra won the gold in athletics championship. Pakistan's Arshad Nadeem won silver. But since Arshad couldn't find his country's flag anywhere, Neeraj asked Nadeem to join him. The duo shared the podium with the Indian flag, a picture that spoke volumes. And ever since then, the two have been competing at the Olympics, Commonwealth Games, Asian Games, and various international tournaments, giving a tough fight to each other, but harboring mutual respect. So much so that Neeraj's mother once called Arshad someone like her own son. Arshad recently won the gold at Paris Games, beating Neeraj Chopra, a historic first for Pakistan. So while the two are always challenging each other in this sport, they're doing it with grace. It's athletes like these who have a fan base across the border despite the political differences that really count. Like in cricket, we have seen Sachin Tendulkar, Virat Kohli and MS Dhoni being admired by Pakistani fans. Or the fanfare of Wasim Akram and Shoaib Akhtar in India because of the love they have, especially when they go up against India. The contest becomes so much more exciting. Maybe the same could follow in chess, the birth of a healthy rivalry. So here's the thing, there is nothing wrong in calling spade a spade. Pakistan chess team acknowledged that the Indian side were the better team. And they cherished that moment with the gold medal winning Indian contingent, unlike the hockey side who wanted India to lose. Now, intense rivalry is great, but that can be achieved through grace too. that doesn't end up demeaning your own country and the state it has in the world of sports diplomacy. Cricketing fortunes of a country invariably hinges on the cricketing fortunes of its stars, the biggest faces who somehow determine the path their country takes in the sport. For Bangladesh, that's Shakib Al Hasan, a very problematic yet influential leader who finds himself at the crossroads. In fact, a lot of the political developments that's going on in the country has really impacted not just the cricket, but also the relationship that Bangladesh shares with India. Two big events happened over the course of the last 24 hours that have thrown Bangladesh cricket into sharp focus and in very troubled waters. One, of course, is Shakib Al Hasan announcing his retirement and thus making a plea to play a last match on his home soil. The other is fans between the two sides clashing on the day of the second test in the Indian city of Kanpur at the stadium. Now, both these occurrences are linked to the turmoil that Bangladesh find themselves in. Let's talk about the latest. Bangladesh superfan Tiger Roby was allegedly attacked by Indian cricket supporters at the start of the test at the Green Park Stadium. The Bangladeshi superfan, in fact, claims that he tried to get away from the crowd post that. Cops found him out of breath, stumbling out of Block C of Green Park Stadium. The fan also said that the Indian crowd gathered in the section he was seated in were extremely hostile towards him and had been constantly hurling abuses at the Bangladeshi supporter.
A cop told me not to stand at the block. I was there only because I was scared. They were hurling abuses since morning. I've watched enough Bollywood movies to understand the abuses.
But here's the kicker. Just some hours later, the very same fan made a complete U-turn saying there was no attack, there was no hostility shown towards him, but that he was dehydrated and had to get out of the stadium.
हमारा तबीयत खराब होएगा पुलिस हॉस्पिटल में नहीं आएगा ट्रीटमेंट करेगा तो এখন আমি অনেকটা সুস্থ हो गया.
This story doesn't add up because the test match is underway in very trying circumstances. Security had in fact been beefed up at the stadium after the association received multiple threats from certain groups to disrupt the test match. There has been a lot of hate towards Bangladesh supporters and the cricket team in particular. Tension back home in Bangladesh has affected proceedings in India, impacting the cricket and the very passionate fans in the country. But I guess this acrimonious attitude is being mirrored by a section of Bangladeshis back home too, directed towards their own Shakib Al Hasan, which brings me to point number 2. Shakib's dream of finishing his career by playing one of his last matches at home seems to hang by the balance. At the pre-match press conference at the Green Park before taking on India, Shakib stated his desire to finish his career with at least one game in front of his home crowd.
If there is an opportunity for me to go back to the country, Mirpur test will be my last in test cricket. If that won't happen, the match against India in Kanpur would be my last in test cricket. These things have been communicated with the board and they are trying to make the best arrangement so that I can play and feel secure.
Yes, there's a series against South Africa that Bangladesh is set to play later this year, and Shakib is hoping that he can make it there with no complications. What are the complications, and why is this a very strained request? A reminder of what's transpired with regards to Shakib Al Hasan over the weeks post the unrest in Bangladesh. Shakib was slapped with a murder charge along with many other prominent political figures, including former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, for whose party Shakib even won a seat in the elections earlier this year. And that has obviously made his entry into his own country a rather difficult passage. Shakib says he hopes there is enough security in place for him to at least be able to finish his career the way he would want to. It's one of the things any athlete always dreams of, playing in front of his or her own home crowd before they end it all. They design retirements around this. Anyone who has had a career as long, elaborate and a tad troubled as Shakib's deserves that. I cannot help but look at the irony in the situation. A cricketer with a very colourful past that involved getting into fights with opposite team players and captains, umpires and even fans is getting to have possibly a colourful and rather eventful finish too. Picture this. The Test series against South Africa is scheduled to take place in October this year, as of now. Of course, this is subject to everything else falling into place in Bangladesh's political landscape. But assuming it does, police personnel outnumbering all cricketers at the stadium just to ensure that Shakib Al Hasan can get the perfect farewell, his moment under the sun. Protests raging on outside even as many oppose this move. Another section, the fans gathered at the stadium to witness, all contributing to a significant image of Shakib Al Hasan making his exit. One of Bangladesh's very best, leaving the sport just as stormily as he announced himself on the global stage. A sight to see. North Korea came out of hibernation and stunned everyone by winning the Under-20 Women's World Cup in football. A historic third title win as they joined the likes of Germany and the United States. The other two countries also have the same number of titles. The reason I say hibernation is because the country was absent for half a decade from the tournament. Can you even imagine that? The Under-20 Women's World Cup takes place after an interval of 2 years. It's a massive thing to miss a World Cup and come back to take the field and beat the rest. They missed 2 World Cups, in fact, and came back to do this. All of this despite their long absence from international football. And here's the best part. A team that has not played any international football for 5 years had a flawless campaign in their comeback World Cup. They announced their return with a 6-2 thrashing of Argentina, followed it up by hammering Costa Rica with 9 goals. And that was just in the group stages. They then notched up a 1-0 semi-final win against USA, and then in the big final, North Korea battled hard to beat Japan 1-0. While it was a historic moment for the country, the celebrations back home proved how disconnected the country is even from their own sporting heroes. Even on the international circuit, a majority of the players are unknown to the rest of the world. The girl who set the tournament on fire and scored the winner for North Korea in the final, Cho Il-sun, is an unknown face in international football. Someone who won the Golden Ball and the Golden Boot. Why? Because the country we are talking about here is North Korea, a strict regime, an isolated country from the world, and hardly takes part in major sporting tournaments. The only tournament the very talented Cho is seen playing is the domestic club in her country. It isn't just Cho who is a mystery figure in this super talented lineup. The lack of international exposure is a theme across every sport in the country. And when they do participate, it comes with heartache. The biggest example came at the Paris Games. After missing the Tokyo Olympics, the country participated in the Paris edition. A mini comeback there as well, but all athletes were advised not to interact with players from other countries, particularly from South Korea. And those who did had to pay the price, even for a small gesture like smiling with their opponents. Table tennis pair of Kim Kam-yong and Ri Jing-sik, who won the silver medal in the mixed team event, were supposedly scolded for smiling in a picture with the third-placed South Korean team at the podium. And this was not a one-off incident. Back in 2010, the North Korean men's national football team was punished after they crashed out of the World Cup. According to reports, the team manager was forced to retire. He had to take up being a construction worker to earn his livelihood. Athletes were reportedly scolded for at least 6 hours for this performance, that too publicly. Naturally, being an athlete is risky business in North Korea. I'm not saying this. The examples I just gave you and many more are proof of this statement. Coming back to this week, though, North Korea's junior team has managed to scale the impossible, winning a World Cup with zero exposure, with zero practice or any sort of match moments in 5 years preceding. Can the senior side, a team that is up against far more experienced athletes the world over, do the same? Evidently not. A hero at home will not always be one outside. The country's football system hasn't been making much progress. In the history of FIFA World Cups, North Korea's men's team have only qualified to the main draw twice. And when they did, they reached the quarterfinal stage just once. And that was way back in 1966. But instead of making an upward swing from there on, they went right downhill. The women's side, despite creating history in the under-20 setup, have only qualified 4 times for the World Cup main draw, the best being, again, a quarter-final finish, and this was in 2007. So despite shining at the junior stage, the same will be difficult to replicate at a senior level with the very same expectations, very same process of not playing international football, where the pros, of course, tackle each other. So clearly, the regimented focus, almost strict isolation, won't help North Korea in the long run. What does North Korea hope to achieve from this? They are cornered politically. The only ground that can bring them on the same page with others is sports. If they continue to restrict their players here as well, they lose out on growing a sporting ecosystem. Maybe they should seek some inspiration from South Korea. Quite a tricky one here, but I'm going to state facts. Numbers don't lie. South Korea finished 8th at the Paris Games with 32 medals that included 13 goals. And football remains a massive sport in that country. They are a dominant force in Asia, 2-time winners of the AFC Asian Cup. They have role models who can inspire the next generation. Son Heung-min plays in England for Tottenham, one of the biggest clubs in the Premier League. In the past, they had Park Ji-sung, who won 4 Premier League titles and a Champions League one too. These guys brought the football culture to South Korea, making them a powerhouse. When you look at North Korea, their historic 3 titles in under-20 World Cups is a good morale booster, but it also means that the young players do not have anyone to look up to. You need senior players to be role models. Case in point are players like Sunil Chhetri, Baichung Bhutia for India, who have inspired young footballers in the country. Sadly, the same cannot be said about North Korea. If the 17-year-old Cho doesn't get international exposure or allowed to be played international football, she might just become another name in the history books with a title that says North Korea's golden generation. There is opportunity here, of course, to rewrite the sporting culture and history. Their junior women's team has just won a World Cup. They can lead the future, but they need that support from the administration and some freedom to flourish in this sport, at home and abroad. Otherwise, North Korea will have to contend with their one-off golden streaks that do nothing to elevate their sporting status. All right, time for last serve. No pain, no gain. A statement apt for China's pro wrestler when Wang Tao, the fighter who aspires to be China's belt and road champion, is pushing his boundaries despite lack of facilities and undeveloped scenes of pro wrestling in China. Take a look. Right, that wraps it up here on Firstpost. I'll, of course, see you again next week. Have a lovely weekend. I'll see you around on Monday. Take care. Bye-bye.
Hello and welcome to Fast and Factual. My name is Utsav Parekh and here are the top stories of the day.